welcome to a new edition of Africa Today. In this edition of the program, we will focus on the G20 summit currently taking place in Rio de Janeiro as Brazil pushed for concerted action to alleviate hunger Monday as it hosted the G20 leading economies amid global uncertainty over two major wars and incoming U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Brazilian President Luiz Lula da Silva welcomed foreign leaders to Rio de Janeiro's Modern Art Museum Monday morning and delivered an opening address that focused on fighting food insecurity. Details follow.
Heightened global tensions and uncertainty about an incoming U.S. President Donald Trump administration ahead of the G20 summit already had tempered expectations for a strongly worded statement addressing the conflicts in the Middle East and between Russia and Ukraine. Further dimming prospects, G20 officials said that Argentina's negotiators have started challenging some of the draft language. That has left experts anticipating a final document focused on social issues like the eradication of hunger, one of Brazil's priorities. Observers say Brazilian diplomacy has been strongly engaged in this task, but to expect a substantively strong and consensual declaration in a year like 2024, with two serious international conflicts, is to set the bar very high. Under Lula da Silva, Brazil has reverted to its decades-old principle of non-alignment to carve out a policy that best safeguards its interests in an increasingly multipolar world, even as his administration's foreign policy has at times raised eyebrows. A demonstration Sunday on Rio's Copacabana beach featured 733 empty plates spread across the sand to represent the 733 million people who went hungry in 2023. They called on leaders to take action. Brazil wanted a global deal to fight poverty, a project to finance green transition, and some consensus over a global tax for the super rich.
And now we are joined over the phone by Dr. Mostafa, Tamaam, political analyst, to tell us more about the G20 summit in Brazil. Good afternoon, sir. Dr. Mostafa, good afternoon. Our reports from the African continent, and almost 60% of South Sudan's population will be acutely food insecure next year, with more than 2 million children at risk of malnutrition. Data from United Nations-backed review made the warning. Details follow.
The world's youngest country is among the globe's poorest and is grappling with its worst flooding in decades, as well as a massive influx of refugees fleeing the war in Sudan to the north. The latest Integrated Food Security Phase Classification IPC review estimated that 57% of the population would be suffering from acute food insecurity from April. The UN defines acute food insecurity as when a person's inability to consume adequate food puts their lives or livelihoods in immediate danger. Almost 7.7 million people will be classed as acutely food insecure, according to the IPC, an increase from 7.1 million people the previous lean season. The UN's World Food Programme, WFP, in South Sudan said it's clear that a cocktail of despair, conflict, and the climate crisis are the main drivers in hard-hit areas. More than 85% of returnees fleeing the war in Sudan will be acutely food insecure from the next lean season in April. The data also found that 2.1 million children are at risk of malnutrition, compounded by a lack of safe drinking water and sanitation. UNICEF's representative in South Sudan said malnutrition is the end result of a series of crises. In October, the World Bank warned widespread flooding was worsening an already critical humanitarian situation. The UN's humanitarian agency, OCHA, said earlier this month that 1.4 million people had been impacted by the flooding, which had displaced almost 380,000 people.
And we are back with Mr. Mostafa Tamaam, political analyst. Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon.
So, sir, how do you see the importance of this year's G20 meetings in light of new global challenges, Israeli aggression on Gaza and Lebanon, and strives in Africa and the war in Ukraine?
Certainly, this meeting is very, very important. As you mentioned, now we have a lot of political issues that have a negative effect on the worldwide economy.
Yeah.
Also, the worldwide economy is suffering from a lot of negative consequences. And this will be, and this conference probably will put an action plan in order to overcome all these negative consequences, and in order that we have a progressive forecast for the worldwide economy. This is quite important, and certainly the most important thing in this conference will be the cooperation between the countries which are participating in the G20, and will certainly put a plan in order to overcome all the negative aspects.
Yes, Mr. Mostafa, reforming global governance is among issues raised by Egypt during the G20 meetings. How would you elaborate on means of reforming global governance?
Well, certainly this will be, Egypt has to take certain steps in order to achieve this objective. First thing, certainly, we need to overcome bureaucracy. Number two, certainly we need to upgrade our human resources, and this will be by transferring the technology from probably other advanced countries which have this technology. And in order that Egypt is playing a very important role in the African continent, however, it could transfer this technology to the African countries. The third thing, which is very, very important, is the judicial system. Certainly, should be a system should be upgraded in order that any legal dispute should not take a long time. You see, because this is quite a problem which affects the economy. So and probably gives a negative impact on attracting investors here, either they're local or foreign investors. So certainly these three factors have to be resolved in order that we reach our objective.
So, Sir, President Fattah al-Sisi highlighted challenges faced by developing nations in achieving development. How would you list such challenges?
Certainly, these challenges would be, the first thing, certainly having the peace, as you just mentioned in the beginning of this interview, that peace should be take place. It's very, very important, because unless we have peace on the Gaza-Israeli war or in the Ukraine one, certainly this will not probably be a factor to elevate the development of most countries, see, and will have a negative effect, as we just mentioned. So the President has certainly given focus on probably that the worldwide community should probably take an advantage and take steps in order to resolve these two issues which have a very big negative effect.
So, Dr. Mostafa, the United States announced shortly before UN summit in September that it supports 2 new permanent seats for African countries without veto power and a first ever non-permanent seat for a small island developing nation. What's your comment on this move?
Certainly, this is quite an important step, but however, we should see results. You see, probably statements are not enough. Certainly, there should be an action plan in order to implement these recommendations, because it's very, very important, and to have a follow-up system in order to, certainly there will be obstacles in implementing such a plan. So certainly we should probably have a certain committee to elevate these obstacles. It's very, very important in order to reach our objectives.
So G20 countries agreed to a global alliance against hunger and poverty unveiled by Brazil last July. How do you weigh the move?
This is very important, certainly, because unfortunately, a large number of countries worldwide suffer from these two factors that you just mentioned now. And certainly, this could have a negative effect on the development of, and specifically, I would like to talk about African countries which suffer from these two factors. So certainly, having a plan in order to elevate these two factors and eliminate them, they're very, very important. This will be a step in order to reach development. And certainly, Egypt here has taken a lot of steps and a lot of projects. I'll give you a certain example. The projects of Haya Karima, certainly, which enhance giving certainly a suitable life for Egyptians who suffer from these two factors. This could be a role model that probably a lot of countries could follow in order to overcome these obstacles.
So observers say that the world is looking to G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro for a breakthrough in climate talks. What can we expect in this regard?
This is very important, certainly. Unfortunately, the climate factor in the past was neglected, and it was not taken seriously. Certainly, what happened, we saw a lot of problems, a lot of fires, and a lot of probably weather, probably negative impact on certain countries that led the worldwide community take the climate changes and put a plan in order to eliminate certain factors which cause the climate changes, cause negative climate changes. And certainly Egypt had the COP27 in order, which probably put certain recommendations, and in the COP29 also Egypt has attended and probably put a lot of their expertise in this respect. Certainly, the worldwide community should take this factor take it seriously, because it will, on the long run, it will have a negative effect on the worldwide community.
So, sir, also, how far President Fattah al-Sisi's speech has addressed regional developments? How did you read the President's speech?
Certainly, the President has focused on regional developments, but certainly the most important thing that he stressed on, that we have to have peace in the Middle East, because unless we don't have peace, certainly no development will be able to take place.
Yes.
And Egypt played a very important role since the conflict, the Palestinian conflict with Israel. Egypt played a very, very important role, putting a lot of efforts in order to have to stop this war and start looking at how to develop these countries.
So President Fattah al-Sisi and the Brazilian President Da Silva emphasized the importance of strengthening cooperation given their shared interests and positions on various global issues. What are the horizons of cooperation between the two countries in the coming stage?
Certainly, the cooperation could take place in the industrial sector, as Egypt has a lot of experience in this respect. Also in the oil and gas industry, Egypt has a very good experience in this field and could transfer its experience to other countries, specifically Brazil. Certainly the third factor, the third element will be the agriculture. It's very important that countries now should concentrate on these two factors in order, as these will be the pillars for development, the agriculture and the industrial sector. These are very, very important, and Egypt is probably putting a lot of efforts in order to upgrade these two ones.
So, sir, one final question. In light of both countries being members in the BRICS economic group, to what extent Egypt and Brazil can realize economic integration in the coming period?
Certainly, the first factor will be certainly increasing the trade between two countries, increasing imports and exports between two countries. And this certainly will have a positive impact on both countries. The second one certainly will be the transfer of experiences in both countries. Each country has an advantage in certain areas, and they can transfer their experiences to both each other.
So finally, I'd like to thank Dr. Mostafa Tamaam, political analyst. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And back to our reports from Africa. Nigeria started Mpox vaccination on Monday, administering shots to health workers and people with weak immune systems at hospitals in the capital, Abuja. This came more than a month after the program was scheduled to start. Details follow.
Africa's most populous nation, Nigeria, received its first batch of 10,000 doses of the Mpox vaccine from the United States in August, after the World Health Organization declared Mpox a global public health emergency for the second time in 2 years. Nigeria, one of the African countries where Mpox is endemic, has recorded 94 confirmed cases and no deaths since the start of the year. At the Federal Medical Center in Abuja, health workers wearing gloves and masks administered Mpox shots to 30 people, marking the start of the vaccination campaign. Officials said it is not a mass vaccination but target-ringed vaccination for healthcare workers and immunocompromised persons, that is, people living with HIV. Officials at the U.S. Center for Disease Control said the initial vaccination program would last 10 days, focusing on Abuja and 7 states, including oil-producing Akwa Ibom, Bailisa and Rivers, where several cases have been recorded. The WHO said an initial 899,000 vaccine doses have been allocated for 9 countries across Africa, hit hardest by the Mpox surge.
And by that, viewers, we come to the end of today's edition of Africa Today. Thank you for watching.